Good morning, everyone. I am Captain David Sentner with the Medina County Sheriff's Office, along with Lisa Duranick, the doctor, the coroner of Medina County. Dr. Duranick will be reviewing the Bryon Macron autopsy report that was completed by the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office, after which I will give a brief update on the investigation to date. Dr. Duranick?
Good morning. I'm Dr. Shirley. Lisa Duranick, D-E-R-A-N-E-K, M.D. I am the Medina County Coroner. I'm here to briefly go over the autopsy report of Mr. Bryon Macron. I will also explain to you the information obtained from the autopsy and how that impacted on my decision on cause and manner of death. Before we get started, I would like to thank the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office for doing a very thorough job on this case. And along with my staff and myself, our thoughts and prayers are still going out to the Macron family. You will be able to get an autopsy report. I'm only going to go over the highlights, which I feel are important. There were 6 incised wounds found on Mr. Macron's body. None of these wounds alone caused Mr. Macron's death. To Mr. Macron's neck. Carotid artery or the internal jugular vein. There was some bleeding, but it could be controlled with direct pressure. There were 5 other lacerations found on Mr. Macron's body, one on his shoulder. There was a very superficial one noted on his neck on the left side under his chin. There was one deeper laceration noted on Mr. Macron's right forearm and 2 other superficial lacerations noted on Mr. Macron's left forearm. None of these incised wounds, and when I mean incised wounds, that was cut with an object, caused Mr. Macron's death. They would cause some blood loss, but not his death. There was no blunt force trauma to Mr. Macron's face or head. The neck exam revealed no bruising of Mr. Macron's neck. The anterior neck bones were intact. There were no fractures. Mr. Macron's cervical spine was also intact. There were no fractures noted to Mr. Macron's sternum, chest, pelvis, long bones. They did an extensive exam of Mr. Macron's hands. There was no bruising noted on Mr. Macron's hands. There were no cuts. There were no fractures to Mr. Macron's hands. The lung exam, there was no evidence of any lung trauma. The lungs were well aerated, and there was no evidence of any foreign body or water in the bronchi or the lung tubes. The rest of the internal exam of Mr. Macron was unremarkable. In conclusion, there was no clear cause of death substantiated by the autopsy. Cause of death, undetermined. The toxicology screen that was done on Mr. Macron was positive only for alcohol. There was a positive hit for amphetamines, and this was a reason why the toxicology results took so long. We wanted to substantiate that this positive hit for amphetamine was due to products of decomposition, and that was substantiated by a positive screen for tyramine and beta-phenylethylamine. Those are products of decomposition. Once again, the toxicology screen was positive only for alcohol. As far as manner of death, we have 5 categories to try to classify a death. The first one is natural. The second one is accidental. And then we have homicide, suicide, and undetermined. Based on the evidence that we have to date, does not support any other category except undetermined. Thank you.
The purpose of this press conference is to provide an update of the investigation into the death of Bryon Macron, based on all the information that we have to date. As you know, the Medina County Sheriff's Office was notified of Mr. Macron's disappearance at approximately 7:30 a.m. on December 16th. Deputies were immediately dispatched to the Township Administration Building in the Macron home. And at this time, an investigation was opened and initiated. Within an hour and 10 minutes, Mr. Macron's vehicle was located via OnStar detection, parked in the beachside parking lot next to Chippewa Lake. It's important to note, leading up to Mr. Macron's death, that Mr. Macron himself had incurred a considerably large amount of financial debt, along with other personal behaviors he was engaged in that were unknown to his family and friends that we will not go into detail at this time. Video surveillance from area businesses and residences showed Bryon Macron's vehicle driving route the early mornings of December 16th, which began with his arrival at the Township Administration Building at 1:50 a.m. His vehicle left the Township Building at approximately 6:24 a.m. and is observed passing a residence near the lake minutes later. Physical evidence processed by the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigations from the Township Administration Building, as well as Mr. Macron's recovered vehicle, resulted in matching Bryon Macron's DNA. DNA and blood found in and around the bathroom sink and on the faucet matched only Bryon Macron. The bloody footprints located in the Administration Building were consistent with the shoes Bryon Macron was wearing at the time his body was recovered. No additional blood from anyone else was obtained in or around the Administration Building or in or around his vehicle. As a matter of due diligence and standard protocol, several emergency responders and township employees' DNA profiles were obtained in the case of cross-examination or cross-contamination of the scene. As the coroner stated earlier, the cause and manner of death listed on the autopsy is undetermined. Upon reviewing the autopsy report and the physical evidence, our investigators have determined that based on all the evidence obtained to date, that no other person other than Bryon Macron was involved in his death. We would like to thank our partners with the FBI and the Ohio BCI for their assistance in this matter. We'll now take a couple of questions, but please understand that there are some details we will not be releasing with the media or public out of respect for the family, and this investigation is still open and ongoing.
So just sum it up, you think he in some way took his own life because of debts?
What we know is that there's no one else involved, and that's what we know right now. That's the fact. That's what we know.
Have you had a chance to talk to the Macron family?
We-
If so, how are they doing?
We spoke with them this morning. They are, obviously, they're upset, but hopefully in time, as we begin to move through the rest of this investigation, we'll find some closure for them.
Can you describe a little bit about the financial issues?
I cannot comment at this time.
So you believe he was the only one involved, but the coroner's ruling is undetermined. Can that change over the course of time? Could you come back and change that?
The cause of death cannot be changed. It is undetermined. We do not know what caused Mr. Macron's death. The manner of death can be amended if new evidence does come to light.
So he was not breathing by the time he went in the water, though?
I cannot substantiate that.
A lot of people are going to wonder how this all unfolded, how this happened, if he was the only one involved in his death, how we ended up out 200 feet out from the lake shore when he was found.
I think there are some other factors that are involved. The cold temperature, hypothermia could also have been involved. There also could have been some aspect of his death dealing with the water, but I cannot substantiate that with autopsy. We can assume, but once again, that is not factual. and my cause and rulings have to be based on fact at this time.
But can you tell from the wounds that they're self-inflicted?
They can be self-inflicted. The directionality could substantiate that, but I cannot prove that it was self-inflicted.
But you don't have any other proof, the sheriff's department doesn't have any other proof that anybody else was in the township building that night or in his car?
That is correct.
Okay. So the only proof you have is that it was just Mr. Macron?
That's correct.
Did you disclose the information of death and other issues with the family, and how did they react?
I think that is understandable based on how long this has been going on. But once again, I feel that to do a thorough job and to do justice to Mr. Macron, that is why the medical examiner's office and myself made sure that we left no stone unturned and made sure that everything that we report to you was factual.
Did you receive any tips or anything in the case that pointed to another person involved?
We have not, no.
Is this case considered closed now?
It is not closed. It's open and ongoing.
Will you be releasing any of that video footage that you got, their surveillance video that you said shows Mr. Macron at 1:10, at 6 o'clock, whatever the exact times were?
Not at this time, no.
And that's because the case is still open?
That is correct.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. What if and when you ever close it,
Then, if and when this case is closed, then the investigation will be open.
Can you talk a little about the investigation and moving forward right now? What exactly are you looking into?
We still have pieces of evidence that are out with the FBI and BCI that we're waiting results on. And once we get those back, then we'll continue with the information that we get.
What is that evidence?
Right now, we have Mr. Macron's laptop is at Quantico, Virginia, at the forensic laboratories of the FBI. At some point prior to his disappearance, he had installed a high level of security software on his computer and changed his password. So we're still trying to get into it.
Tell me
you don't-
about how this has been for your department. I mean, for the community, I know this has been 7 months of a lot of questions, a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation, just because there have been so few answers until today. Can you kind of walk me through what it's been like, how tough this case has been for your department?
It's been very frustrating for us. The detectives have done an outstanding job doing their due diligence to find the fact and the answers for the family and the community. And it's been frustrating for us. But unfortunately, it's not TV, folks. It's what we do. We have to wait for other agencies to help us with forensic testing. And at one point in time years ago, we could call up a finance company and get reports back within seconds. Now we have to leave subpoenas and we have to wait for all that to come back. So it takes time, and unfortunately it's taken longer than we've wanted as well. But I assure you, we have done everything that we can, as thoroughly as we can, for the family and the community.
any timetable from, and probably not, but any timetable you've gotten back from the FBI, maybe when all that will be done?
We have no timetable at this time.
I mean, how active is this investigation then? You've done pretty much everything you can to get answers.
It's still active. We're still looking and reviewing everything that we've got to this point, and we'll continue to do so. As other information becomes available, then we'll proceed with it. So, this is going to conclude our press conference. We please ask you to respect the Macron family at this difficult time, and thank you for coming.
Sure. Would you like an autopsy report?
Absolutely.